The scary statistics in Nigeria's basic education sector brings the federal government intervention plan in the universal basic education in Nigeria under close scrutiny. How could anyone explain the depressing statistics that of the 65 million out-of-school children in the world, Nigeria is home to 11.5 million of the sects? It's question time. Welcome to the program. I'm Benga Ashuru. You may also join in this conversation by sending us a comment on our various social media platforms showing on your screen. The signals coming from Nigeria's education sector points that the institution of learning in this country is in an intensive care state and barely gasping for breath. With a sad commentary that 50 million Nigerians are illiterate, wait a moment. If the total population of Nigeria is an estimate of 170 million, that means about 1/3 of Nigerian population is illiterate. What's more, about 44% of Nigerian teachers are lacking the basic teaching qualification. With the federal government stepping out with an ambitious budget of 540 billion naira for the education sector in the year 2017, the biggest since 2011, is there enough political will, resources, and mandate to make a difference in a desperate circumstance that cries out for intervention? Now we bring Dr. Hamid Boboyi, the Executive Secretary of the Universal Basic Education Commission, UBEC, on the hot seat in this exclusive interview. We began by taking him to task on the UN SDG Mandate 4 of free and inclusive basic education for all Nigerians.
The basic education sector, as you know, is the foundation for building a future generation that Nigeria requires, and also that is supposed to serve the nation. If we miss that foundation, it becomes very difficult to have a vibrant and functional educational system and the kind of capital formation that we need to ensure that Nigeria meets its developmental challenges. The basic education sector definitely is mired in so many problems. And many of these problems had been accumulating over a long period of time. It's not just something that we woke up overnight to find ourselves in these difficulties. There are serious difficulties in terms of the kind of infrastructure that we have. When you visit a school, you come to find that many of the classes, the windows are broken, isn't it? It doesn't provide the right environment that is required for learning to take place effectively. We find challenges that are also associated with the issue of planning, particularly from our various partners. And we have to understand that UBEC is an intervention agency. The federal government doesn't own a single primary school. It doesn't employ teachers. It doesn't have a teacher, with the exception perhaps of the unity schools that are run by the Ministry of Education. So a lot of these activities, that are required to take place have to take place within the states. And we find a situation whereby there are some states that prioritize education, and there are some states that are a little lackluster.
You raised the issue of lack of uniformity of commitment and priority to education at different state levels. But when we also consider the fact that UBEC is on the concurrent list, do you think there is a need to amend the UBEC Act?
Yeah, I think, if I, could be allowed to finish even the flow of the discussion that we started. Yes, definitely there are a lot of areas within the UBEC Act that needs to be looked at. But the issue is that we also need to understand what are those challenges that we need to address. Are they necessarily challenges that are predicated on legislation? That when you have the law, isn't it, is going to change, isn't it, what is on the ground? Or is it an operational issue where we need to mobilize, we need to synergize, sit with the state governments, discuss? And I think it's a process that had already started, where we are looking at those issues, isn't it, in a collective manner, but trying also to see where those problems are. Now, if you look at the issue of planning, it's something that actually cuts across in terms of strategic planning. Cuts across into almost all the states. If you look at the issue of teachers, the Southwest, for example, isn't it? And many parts of the Southeast have surplus teachers that are deployed to the classroom, isn't it? And are doing fairly well. Go up north, you go and find serious problems in terms of unqualified teachers, in terms of teachers who are not well prepared to ensure that they, the learning that is required, isn't it? For them to carry out in the schools, isn't it? Are not effectively done.
Now, it's difficult to put a finger on the fact that year in, year out, we have a situation where huge amounts of money has been allocated to the education sector, but yet nothing to show for it. So how do you explain this reality that we have funds being channeled to the sector, but yet when we get to the schools, most of the structures are dilapidated?
You are absolutely right, Benga, that resources had been budgeted. Huge resources have been given by the federal government as intervention funds. And 50% of whatever was budgeted was supposed to directly be allocated to the states as matching grants. The state is supposed to bring, if a state is supposed to receive, say, 1 billion naira per annum, is supposed to also bring another 1 billion as counterpart funding. This had been designed so as to really re-establish the fact that education is a concurrent affair. The state government has a responsibility to also participate in funding the infrastructure. The federal government also has a responsibility. And it is that shared responsibility that generated the counterpart funding. But the key worry that we have, and it is something that we have gone out of our